It's a cold Friday morning here in Germany, and my guests today are Alina Grün and Dr. Petra Künkel from Collective Leadership Institute. Both are deeply involved in social and organizational change. Alina, would you like to tell us something about what you're doing here?
Yeah, so maybe from a rather personal perspective, what I'm doing is, or what is the value for me is actually to think about meaning for myself, but also in the community, in the society, and it's about contributing to a society that sees also values of supporting each other, mutual appreciation, and it seems like a very philosophical question. However, it's also possible to contribute on a very practical base, on a daily base, to the communities, and this is actually what I'm doing every day at the Collective Leadership Institute. We are contributing to future-oriented people to work together to empower their dialogic skills so that they are able to really contribute to change, to contribute to transformative change in local environments, but also regional and global environments, and to bigger goals. Yeah, so this is a meaning for me to do my daily work. It's actually not work then, it's rather contributing to my meaning. Yeah,
it's coming from your heart.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. And you, Petra, what is your motive to your work?
Yeah, my motive is, of course, change. Of course, systems change, as so many others at the moment. It has been a long journey, and I think when I look back, I think we already started in the 90s, to talk about systems change, or even earlier. But I think today more and more people are really trying to figure out, because we are probably still learners in how to go about systems transformation. So the what is important. It is really about sustainability. It is about a different world. It's about a different interaction. It's about a new economic system, etc. But more concrete, we're bringing it down to helping people in sustainability projects, in sustainability initiatives, to actually design them and implement them in a way that they become impactful, so that actually it works. And what Alina said is absolutely right. It often hinges on people and the way people act with each other. So on how you get people into collective action, how you get people into reflective dialogues. So this is at the core of our work. And at the core of my work in the Club of Rome, where I am a member and also a board member of the International Club of Rome, of course, it's more the perspective on global systems change and how do we actually get from the planetary emergency that we have at the moment into an emergence of a new way of acting with each other, of a new way of relating to the planet, relating to humankind as a whole. And how we do this, and there are quite a lot of projects that make a little contribution to that big goal.
Thank you very much, Petra. That sounds amazing. Alina, when you think about the challenges of our times, and when we reflect on what you said and what Petra said, what in your opinion are the most urgent challenges, climate crisis and pandemics aside? Because I think when we look at the meta crisis of our time and the meta crisis to come, we see what has to be done there, but the problems we have are on a far more relationship level, consciousness level, etc. And that's why we do not address these problems. So what, in your opinion, are the challenges we have to address in the individual, in organizations, and in society as a whole?
Yeah, thank you, Gitta. You already pushed the question into a direction which I actually anyway wanted to respond to. I think it's not only COVID and it's not only climate change or social media difficulties. It's rather more about fragmentation from my point of view. It's rather that people as individuals or also as society, they or we don't see a full picture. So because the system is getting so complex, and smaller systems are also getting more complex, and it's really, really difficult for individuals, but also organizations, to see how things belong together. And and that's why it's also difficult for us to see how can I contribute to that. Yeah, so how can I conduct or implement change so that it's impactful. And not, let's say, in 5 years, it's again a big disaster or big challenge again for the next generation then. So I think this is one major challenge. And another major challenge is also a loss of empathy for human interactions, so that we actually only focus on ourselves, and we are losing the connection between human beings, but also between nature and ourselves. And that's why the focus somehow shifts into a direction, or shifted a long time ago into a direction, that we are losing this connection between people and nature. And I think this is the entry point. And of course, if you bring it down on a practical level, this means also that focusing on climate change, how can I contribute to that? Focusing on coping with COVID disease, how can I contribute to that as an individual person? And then also, of course, in a society. And of course, we have a lot of, let's say, to-dos, and we have strategies and plans. And however, if we are not connecting with each other, these are, lonely milestones, let's say like that, and we cannot connect these. So that means that we actually need to think about how can we actually better connect each other. How can we increase our awareness that there are different perspectives, that there are also different worldviews, and we need to bring these together to better understand and to get this bigger picture together. And I think from that, first bringing together the people so that they can get into a conversation with themselves, bring the system into a conversation with itself. And then from these conversations, we can have a better understanding of what are the challenges in local regions, but also in scaling up the regions then.
Thank you. You talked about fragmentation and lack or loss of empathy. From my perspective, it's a deeply rooted phenomenon in the communication structure of our society, now manifesting itself even further in social media, with forms where people did not learn to read and to listen properly, with the result that they tend to focus on themselves and not on the other, with a highly selective form of reading. That's just one thing I wanted to add to your beautiful list of important factors, in my opinion, to address the global problems from a more human side. Petra, when you integrate and look at what Alina said, what is your perspective on these challenges we have to face? How can we actually do this?
So maybe let me go a little bit back to a long-term historical perspective, because what is so interesting also about our time today is that everything is today. You know, we almost forget, what has been taking place in the way we worked, or the consciousness shift 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, etc. And I think a little bit of a historical picture is really interesting in seeing how where we are now, in terms of where we are also in terms of consciousness development as humankind, has been developing. So we can take the last 100 years. We can go back to Alexander von Humboldt, who's really had a modern consciousness. But we can also go back to, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, to 24,000 years. And I'm doing this because what is so interesting is that if you look at the conscious development of humankind, we have been developing into more and more fragmentation, more and more focusing on individuality, including all the pathological behavior that we see on social media. It's not the social media that's the issue, but the way it's being used, or the way it promotes a certain way of individuality and individual greatness and loss of connection. But social media can also be the absolute opposite. You know, they can be used really to connect, also kind of closely, deeply. But what is so interesting is that it's almost like we have a pendulum, you know, that has been going in more and more into the direction of individuality and fragmentation, and a certain definition of rationality, you know, where science also is, okay, the kind of science we have, you know, because there are different forms of science, but the kind of science that is more dominant today is based on that extreme form of rationality. And it's almost, it is a development of many centuries, even thousands of years, and exclude other parts of who we are as human beings, and that is relationality, that is spiritual meaning, that is a sense of empathy for the whole, for the nature, for other people, etc. So I do think, what I almost want to predict that we are, since maybe, I don't know, at least 50 years, we are slowly pushing this pendulum in the other direction. And so, and that is a challenge that we have today, that the world that we've created, you know, the fragmented, the individual, which is becoming more and more complex, which is coming, we are over flooded by information, etc., is a symptom of a too much of something. It's a symptom of a too much of something. It's not, nothing of the details is inherently bad, but it's a symptom of too much. And I think what all our work needs to be about is how we push that back into a balance, you know, that into a balance where we as human beings, and we as change agents, we as designers of the future, because we all are, you know, whether we do a lot or little, so we all are designers of the future, you know, how we can become much more integrative in the way we are, in the way we work, in the way we relate to each other, in the way we relate to nature. So I think these are, for me, the biggest challenges. And what is so interesting is that it historically it really goes together with having much more dominant the male principles. And now you can discuss about the term male, you know, it could be masculine, it could be, yeah, so it could be young, it could be like there are many descriptions. So it's not just male as men, but it's male as a principle. So that has been kind of pushing hard, and it is kind of almost overreacting and pushing away the yin or the female aspects of life. And that is that's almost like life is taking revenge, you know, at the moment, you know, with COVID and climate. It is definitely getting totally out of balance. And I think our big task is to say we all need to work on rebalancing ourselves, rebalancing our organizations, rebalancing the way we live with each other and with nature, of course, and the planet as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Alina, Petra talked about we are all designers of the future. I'm thinking about this as we all are agents of evolution. As with evolution, I sometimes love the idea of thinking about evolution as an organism. Mm-hmm. Yeah, with every individual playing his or her role in this organism to learn, to thrive, etc. Petra, you talked about a more mechanistic science that is over-rationalizing. On the other hand, we see that many people on this planet today are trying to change this, and sometimes they tend to over-regulate on the other side of the pendulum by becoming a little bit too spiritual, a little bit too irrational, a little bit too holistic, etc., with often even a concept of rational thinking that is actually coming from the last 2 centuries and is not something that we have to achieve now. When you think about the individual and your deep involvement in a new kind of spiritual thinking, as far as I know you, what is your idea? How can we help ourselves and the people we are talking to a concept of rationality, science and spirituality, as Petra has motivated, that does not over-regulate on the other side of the pendulum, so the conflict is growing instead of transforming?
Mm-hmm. Gitta, this is a good question, and actually I would like to start with an example from my daily work. If I work with other people and support them in creating a impactful process, for example, in their local environment, the most exciting moment is actually when the people understand I have power. Yeah, so this is like one crucial moment where like the whole face, the shine in your eyes is changing, actually, where people really see I have the power. I'm not a victim of the circumstances, I'm the leader of the circumstances. And I think the most important step is actually to really practically experience the connection with other people, and then also empower the skills in dialogue. So dialogic skills, so that people are able to talk with each other, to exchange with each other, and bringing different actors into the conversation. So not only bringing the rational part into it, but also bringing another perspective into it, and another perspective, because we have so many, let's say, borders, either very visible or not. It can be a department, it can be cross-country collaboration, it can be different sectors where we have completely different perspectives, and we need to bring them together. We need to also think about how can I create a good, let's say, story to invite these people to contribute, how they see the value of contributing to it. And I think this is actually the first step, like really increasing the empowerment for the people, that they are understanding their contribution. And then the next step is bringing the people together and empower them in this awareness building, empower them in dialogue building, and then understanding we are not let's say, we are not contradicting, we are complementing each other, and every one of us has specific skills and capacities which can contribute to the next steps, to reach the bigger goal, to reach impact, positive impact. And this is a process of exchange. So we need first to understand where do we have lacks, where do we have misunderstandings, and how can we then contribute to better understand it from different perspectives, and then complementary working together and step by step thinking about process steps out of it, so that we creating different perspectives or future orientations regarding or belonging to the needs of the local environment, regional environment, and then also in global questions.
Thank you very, very much. Alina, through your words is one concept shining you have not mentioned, and that is respect. That is what I hear when you are talking about the ideas how we can connect to each other. There's something that I think that is really important to not make the old mistakes over and over again, and not to take an ideological path, and that is to respect the concepts of the other. To listen, to comprehend that my concepts are the concepts of my universe, but not yours, that your concepts are something completely different. So if you are thinking about narration, about storytelling, that's what you talked about. You are talking about a storytelling that is not your story alone. So you are talking about a story that we all create together. Yeah, Petra, when we think about communication as a as an element of society and take a more systemic perspective, we now have the problem that many people on this planet have different problems than to think about listening to the other. They think about how they get food, how they can guarantee a good future for their children and their grandchildren. They are thinking about having air that is breathable and their children not to have to work in the lithium or cobalt mines of the planet. When we look at German or European or American society, we see rising frustration, a lack of frustration tolerance, a growing lack of frustration tolerance throughout the people as a whole, throughout society as a whole. What is your approach on this problem when on one side we have many people wealthy enough to think about their spiritual growth, their communication systems, their integration into nature on one hand, but many others who are living under conditions of suppression of the mind, of intelligence, of their realm of emotion and feelings. What can there be done? What is your idea or approach on this problem?
Thanks, Gitta, for asking a question that cannot be answered. So you can just kind of approximate kind of an idea of an answer, maybe. So maybe first, the frustration tolerance is an interesting term. So this is like how, you know, what's the level of crisis, you know, that we actually can tolerate in the sense of endure and go through and then do something with it that really helps us or helps the future and leaves us more or less intact. And I would agree with you that our really kind of modern, particularly European or American societies, the Western societies, have reached a level of convenience, I almost want to say, that doesn't really help, you know, the frustration tolerance. That's quite interesting. Yeah, it should, you know, like, because we have so many more possibilities, but it's almost like you have more possibilities and now you get much more frustrated if a little thing is different, you know, like now we need to kind of you know, change our behavior because of COVID, you know, which isn't a drama, but it's becoming a drama. And so it is so interesting that people who live under much more challenging conditions often have so much more abilities to connect with each other, because that's their result of energy. You know, this is where they come from. And for good reasons, people who have been traveling in other countries, people who have been working in the global south, people who have been helping kind of people under very difficult, poor circumstances, people who come to rescue to other people, actually have a higher frustration tolerance because they, you know, they actually can give something, they connect on a completely different level. So the question for me is, where does this disconnection, you know, from the human heart to heart relationship, the disconnection from the human to nature relationship, where does that happen, and how and when does it happen in our kind of consumer societies in a way that we lose that connection, and that we are kind of unable to regain the energy that we usually get in close human relationships or close human nature relationships. And if we lose that connection, our frustration tolerance goes down, you know, then somebody else is responsible that we are happy. Yeah? So we do have quite a culture that other people are responsible, you know, kind of for us to be to keep things as they are, don't change things. And so, and it's quite interesting that I do believe that if it's about a way out, then it's what Alina said, it's the reconnection between people. And that doesn't need to be an extra thing, that doesn't need to be a spiritual thing, and it certainly doesn't need to be an esoteric thing. But it can be done on the work level, on the day-to-day level, on the way we act with each other, on the way we discuss an issue, on the way we discuss a problem, on the way we operate, together in order to get things going. Alina and I, we've just kind of setting up a project with a university, and it's quite interesting, like that we basically got the feedback. So, this is fun to prepare this project. Yeah. And I really, the gentleman from the university, I really have meetings like this, that are fun in preparing a project. But I'm just giving this like banal example that they did is about getting vitality into our day-to-day relationships. It's getting vitality into our day-to-day management of issues. And the more vitality we gain in the sense of having fun in the way we work together, in the way in the way we respect each other, because as you mentioned, respect goes a long way to creating or helping people to access their vitality. In the way we listen to each other, listen goes a long way, into making people feel alive again. Yeah? So therapists know that. Yeah. So, but we don't need therapists for that, like we need them definitely, but not
better not
a management environment. But we can bring that level of human connection and connection to the future into our work environments, into our projects, into our big transformative projects, or the small things that need to be done tomorrow. And I do think vitality is almost a guarantee for a better resilience, of course, a better agility, the ability to kind of confront a crisis and say, okay, here it is, let me just respect that crisis and see, what can we do with that? And that is, I think that is, I don't want to say kind of abolishing the frustration, or it's increasing the ability to deal with frustrations, because you look at a frustration, or you look at something that you might have been frustrated by before, you look at it in a different way. And what is so important, what Alina also said, is the moment that you see that you cannot delegate the power over your life to other people, neither the government nor anybody else. The moment you feel, actually I can design the future, the issue of frustration or frustration tolerance isn't even an issue anymore. It's like you are suddenly an actor in your own life and not a victim.
It's more than a change of perspective. It's a change of the way you think and the way you think about yourself and relate to yourself and the world you are surrounded with. Thank you very, very much. This was wonderful. This was one of the talks from my perspective is deeply female. Yeah, in its core, and as you mentioned, a male concept, more as a concept and not as the men in our world. Thank you very much. I think it might also be a good idea to have some crisis experience, to go outside and to see that you can help actually on the streets and in the slums and wherever you go. But I think what's something, what the two of you bring in here is what I love very much, the concept of agility. Yeah, to enable yourself and to bring spirit and life into communication and what you're doing. And I think that's important. And what you bring in here is the concept of agility. So people can relate to themselves and the world they are surrounded with in another way, in a way that is more filled with life. And that is something I really like. Thank you very much, the two of you. This was a wonderful discussion. Do you have something you want to give the audience with for the weekend, something that goes deep and you want to share with them? Alina? A last sentence.
Yeah,
last
I
idea.
had actually really one sentence in my head, which is actually fitting well here. A sentence that changed my perspective when I was a young student was actually, if you always need to think out of the box, then something's wrong with the box. Yeah, and this was actually a sentence that really changed my whole worldview, my perspectives, that we need to think outside the box, like every time, like in every crisis. And this means we are actually the leaders of creating the box. What kind of box do we need? Do we need a box? Do we need a circle? We can create that. And I think this is my last sentence. Let's create a value system with others together. Let's respect each other. And through this, we will be able to create another container. Yeah, it doesn't need to be a box. It can be a container which we create together in smaller contexts, but also in bigger contexts.
I love it. That changes the idea of status and exclusiveness of those people who are thinking out of the box. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Petra, last idea?
Yeah, one idea that I would like to hand over to people, if it is a weekend, kind of think about the following question. When did I last feel really alive, really like, wow, happy, thriving, like, wow, you know, I own life. This is great, and reconnect to the situation, and then start building one little thing into the day, every day, you know, that goes in that direction.
Thank you. Pretty amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, audience, for listening to this talk. I hope you had fun. To me, this was incredible and an incredible and deep experience to talk to the two of you, Alina and Petra. Thank you. I wish you a wonderful day and goodbye. And the three of us, we will talk a little bit further.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.